Hello, everyone. Happy Tuesday. Let's dive right into our topic today. What is that trait of being a servant leader that nobody told you about? And I call it the silent trait. And the silent trait is listening, right? Listening. So, what the trait that of servant leadership that nobody told you about as far as listening, and the reason why it's so darn important, you have likely heard me say this before, that research tells us, our fine folks at SHRM, the Society of Human Resources Management, tell us that 35% of everyone who leaves their position is leaving their boss. Okay, 60% of people who leave either their department or organization leave because they feel unappreciated and unheard. Unappreciated and unheard. Focus on heard, okay? So this is why listening is so important. But before we really dive into listening, let's talk about the term servant leadership. Maybe you disagree with the whole concept of servant leadership. Maybe you've never taken the time to learn about it. Maybe it's just something that others toss around, or you see in the literature, you read a blog on it every once in a while. So maybe you're either not familiar with the term being a servant leader, or maybe you disagree with the whole servant thing. So ask yourself these two questions about you and your leadership. Are you a leader who leads by making your employees feel as though they're being invested in? Do you lead by making your employees feel that they're being invested in? And maybe that investment is your time, your listening, okay? Second question, are you a leader that shows that your focus and care is about your employees being successful in what they do? Are you the leader that shows that your focus and care is all about your employees being successful? If you can answer both of those questions with affirmative, like, yes, I really believe I do that, then you are a servant leader. You may not like being called a servant leader. You may not think of yourself that way, and we can always get better. Duh, that's why you've joined this private group. So let's talk about noise. All right, we're talking about listening. Let's talk about the opposite of listening, which is noise. There's so many distractions in the workplace today. There's so much noise, and I don't mean literal, banging of the gong or noise, even though there's plenty of that. But there's tweets, there's texts, there's messages, there's emails, there's calls on your cell phone, there's calls on your landline, there's Vocera, there's, some of you are still carrying a beeper. There's meetings about meetings, there's meetings on top of meetings, like, right? Crazy. And research on listening says that the average American worker gets 1,800 messages a day that they have to process in all those different formats. 1,800. I truly believe that if you're a leader in healthcare, guess what? We probably double that, right? Probably double that. Let's say 2,000. Let's just crank it up a little bit. Let's be conservative, like a good CFO. And let's say it's 2,000. Still so many things for you to process every single day. And how can you possibly stop and listen when that's going on? You can't. So you have to be intentional about it, and we'll talk about being intentional in a minute. Some really great reading on being, a servant leader and being more intentional about how you listen and make people feel heard. Jim Collins, in his landmark work From Good to Great, he notes that for an employee, there's a giant difference between getting to have your say and actually being heard. And let me repeat that. Jim Collins in Good to Great says there's a huge difference in getting to have your say, which is maybe venting, and actually being heard. So I'll make an analogy for you. If any of you have ever raised a teenager, right? And if it's a girl, it starts like when they're 8. All right. So when you're raising teenagers, especially girls, and I raised two of them, that there's this time when, we call it, they want to just slather all over us, right? It was just like, blah, 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 constant, constant, constant. And, I learned, Scott and I both did in our parenting skills, we learned to just say, is this something that we need to fix for you? Is this something that you need us to react to? Or are you just venting, right? Can I just sit here and allow you to smear all over me? Or is this something that you really need me to do something about? And, unless you have a really good relationship with your employees, I don't recommend that. But you know the difference, right? You can picture that of those people that just vent and they just want to hear themselves versus those people that are really speaking and expecting to be heard, right? Not have their say, but just to be heard. So traditionally, we as leaders have been valued for our communication skills and decision-making skills, right? So servant leaders have got to really enforce those really important skills, communication and decision-making, but you can't do either one of those without being a great listener. Because listening is 2/3 of great communication. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth. We should use this twice as much as we use this. And in order to make really great, effective decisions as a servant leader, you have to listen first before you act. Take in other people's thoughts and feelings before you react to them. So how do you do that? How do you really, start to get great about this? And this is a skill that you have to mindfully go after and really evaluate. Do I do this well? What do I do? So, and it's also something that you can begin working on the minute I push end on this video, right? So here's 3 good tricks for you. The first thing is servant leaders seek to identify groupthink, okay? And a lot of times if you start to do some research on being a great listener, active constructive listening, and you say, I'm going to work on this, remember to also listen in groups. So let's say you're leading a staff meeting. You can lead a staff meeting and physically say during the staff meeting to one of your staff members, think of how powerful this would be. Wait a minute, that's a really great thought. And you just had a really great idea. Let me write that down. If I don't write it down, I'm going to forget. Or better yet, delegate to someone else to say, hey, Colleen, will you write that down for me? Because Hannah just had a fabulous idea and I want to make sure that I get that down, okay? So make sure you identify and clarify groupthink as well. So stop people, and this becomes, when you're a great listener, you're not being a doormat either, right? You're being active and questioning people and asking them, what do you think about this? I've had that thought. I didn't think you guys would want to do that, right? So don't forget about groups. The second thing is remove your personal barriers to listening. We all have them. We all have them. So if you can, and an employee comes to talk to you, or you're doing an evaluation, you're doing a coaching conversation, you're rounding on someone, but when someone comes in your office and says, can I speak to you for a minute? Take your hands off the keyboard, right? Allow body language to be facing that person and relaxed. Wait a minute, I want to make sure that my phone doesn't bother me, so I'm going to put it in this drawer over here, right? Turn the computer away. I used to really be bothered this. And you know what? How powerful is it is if you as a leader say to your employee, this is what I used to say to my employees, you know what? I really want to listen to what you have to say. And if this isn't a totally private conversation, I need to get out of this office where my phone, my cell phone, my computer are all vibrating and pinging at me, right? Can we go for a walk? Can we go outside my office and sit in these nice comfy leather chairs that are underneath these beautiful windows, right? Or do you mind if I move around to the other side of the desk? Do you mind if I sit next to you? Maybe you don't want to share the fact that you're having a really hard time listening to them, but take these actions anyway. Okay, take these actions anyway. Simon Sinek does a video. It's called The Best Video Ever Made. It's, how Simon believes we should lead millennials. And he's actually talking about the fact that we're all addicted to technology and that we never have face-to-face conversations or building relationships anymore. And he talks about cell phones. And, he said he thinks it's really, really presumptuous if we point at our cell phone and say, your conversation is so important to me, I'm going to put down this cell phone right now. And I kind of agree with them. That's kind of, oh, wow, I'm so amazing and such a great listener. Instead, just do it. Just don't make a big deal of it. Just do it. Say, the cell phone's going back in the drawer. Better yet, work without your cell phone except for certain parts of the day. Hello, people, right? So identify and clarify groupthink. Make sure you remove your barriers to listening. But the third thing is, here's the third thing. Take a deep breath. Take a deep breath. When I said take your hands off your computer, sit back, assume a really great listening pose, face people head on. There were people that worked for me that I really, really struggled to listen to. And I'm sure that all of you know these people. You may even have people that work for you that are like this, that when they approach you, you know that this is going to be long. You know that it's going to be whining or complaining. You know that they're going to not take any responsibility for changes they want to see happen and assume that all these changes are going to be done by you. And so you just have to take a really, really deep breath. Almost everyone deserves to be treated fairly and with courtesy and respect, and everyone has amazing, over-the-top things about them that they do really, really well, or hopefully you wouldn't have them around, right? So there are some aspects of their personality that you have to take a deep breath about, and the fact that you have to listen to them might be it. Because if you start blowing them off, bad, right? It's bad. Or if you start listening to be able to respond, also bad. So, group, listen to groups, state, I really want to remember this. Thank you so much for your feedback, you guys. This has been important to me. I'm so glad that someone took notes for me so that I can remember all of this great feedback you're giving. Remove your personal listening barriers. What is it that you just can't get beyond, right? And if someone comes into your office to talk to you and you're working and you're trying to finish an email, say, I have to finish this email right now so that I can give you my full attention, and then give them your full attention. And the third thing is take a deep breath. That everyone provides something, right? Everyone provides that pearl or some wisdom. So our call to action for you is to evaluate yourself always. Maybe you should ask someone, if you're a great listener, maybe you should go home and ask your spouse or someone you're in a close relationship with that, how are my listening skills? Maybe you should add that as a rounding question when you're asking about your personal leadership. How do I do? Am I a good listener? Right? How are my listening skills? Because I really want to work on that. Spend the next month asking that rounding question. So, call to action. We have over 400 people in the Fans of the Framework group. Woo, 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 woo. Right? So invite other people. It's a great group. Sue and I post live videos with small bites of leadership. Next week, I'm talking more about principles and traits of a great servant leader. So hang on to your hat for that. But, there are a lot of you that belong to the Fans of the Framework group that we don't know. We've never met. We would love to meet you personally. We have 2 summits, the Capstone Leadership Summit coming up, plus a Nursing Bundle Bootcamp coming up this October. October is a giant month for training, and we'd love to see you. Check out our website, www.capstoneleadership.net/training events, and see where you can join up with us. We'd love to meet you on the road. Until next week, have a great day.